Everybody ready? Okay. Well, first of all, we're going to Boise State, one of the best home records in all of college football since 2000 to 2000. You look, and it's real impressive. You know, we're playing a team that has a lot of pride. They're very well coached. They're used to winning. Had a tough loss. You know, I know their backs are against the wall. They're going to give it their best. We know that. We're going to play good football. And I look back at, you know, our last victory, and we're happy to be 1-0. But after you look at the film, the execution level, you know, really needs to raise up from week 1 to week 2. And like I told our team, I mean, you know, good teams, they improve more from week 1 to week 2 than they do any other time of the year. We're going to need to do that. You know, we'll have our hands full. We know exactly what we're going to get into. We're going to have to play really good, sound football on both sides of the football. It'll be a physical game, which is always good. And I said we have a lot of respect for them and their head coach. I've went against him numerous times. He's as good as it gets. So play good football. We'll have to execute better than we did last week to have a chance to get a victory. Questions?
Coach, I think this will end up being probably one of the longest, if not the longest game within the continental United States that UCF has played. What are some of the logistical things you've got to do from that standpoint? I saw a lot of activity. Does a truck go up early? Do you take a different plane? Do you go up or come down at a different time? Or?
Yeah, we'll try to get there just a little earlier than normal. I mean, from a coach's standpoint, you do your best to have routine as best you can. Obviously, when you got a 5+ hour flight, that's not your normal deal. But it's early in the season. You know, we'll get there a little bit early and play on that blue field, you know, which will be a little different. We're going to try to practice here locally on a blue field one time before we leave, and we'll see if that will help. But you know, it is what it is. It's a long road game. It just happens to be, you know, one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. And but we're looking forward to it. It'll be a good test to see where we're at.
Gus, one of those logistical challenges you face is altitude. It's a little different altitude. Do you do anything differently in practices to kind of prepare the players for that, or give them some advice or anything like that?
No, we'll have to adjust and adapt. I mean, we're in good shape as far as the heat goes. Obviously, it's going to be a different deal with the altitude, but you know, I think we're in solid shape, and we'll just have to adjust once we get there.
Morning, Coach. Last year, a little bit later in the season until you had your first road game, for all the disadvantages we have talked about with travel, is there a positive long-term for getting into the road schedule sooner in the season?
Well, I mean, I think we travel more than any team in college football, so this is just the first step in that. And, you know, we talked about this from day one with our team. I mean, that's just part of the hand that was dealt us this year. And, you know, anytime you go on the road, you got a chance to be closer. You got a chance to, you know, feel what it feels like to be, you know, us against everybody else. So I think it's a great thing before we get into conference to go to a place like Boise. I mean, obviously we had a big game with them 2 years ago, went down to the very end. We know we're going to get their best. They'll get our best. And, you know, it's one of those good non-conference games.
Following Thursday's game, you talked about the need to have a conversation with John Royce Plumley about not putting his body in as much harm. How did that conversation go? And at this point in his career, how do you change his instinct to try and make a play?
Well, I mean, that's just part of growing. That's what that is. And being wise. And if he's going to have a chance to play at the next level, you know, like I said, Cam Newton's the only guy that I've ever seen that can run over everybody and not get hurt, you know, but he's not that way. And so he's going to have to get what he can get and get out of bounds or slide. And I mean, there's a time, if you know, for the game, that's a different story. But he's just going to have to grow, and we talked about it. I'm confident he will, and you know, he's got to protect the football. You know, we talked about that last year, and you know, his 2 errant throws, we got to correct that, and I'm confident that he'll do that.
Obviously, you coached against Andy Avalos in his debut. What have you seen from him as a growth point since 2021?
Well, first of all, he's an excellent coach, and you know, even when he was a defense coordinator, when I faced him, I mean, everybody around college football knows his reputation, and you know, he came up in that system, and you know, he's a really good coach, and you know, you're going to get a hard-nosed, physical brand of football. And, you know, you turn on the film. I got a lot of respect for the way they play. I mean, they're very physical and hard-nosed. It's fun to watch them, you know, on film. We're going to have to execute. I mean, that's what I told our guys. I mean, we out-athleted that group last week. You know, we're going to have to execute, and really it starts up front, and we're going to have to do a better job of executing and create some seams and some space.
Coach, last week 10 different players were involved in the pass game. Are you expecting that to be something that continues going forward, or was that just a product of the first game getting people involved?
No, I hope so. I mean, I think we got a lot of guys that have the ability to affect the game in a positive way, getting the ball, spread the ball around. And, I think it starts in our running back room. I mean, we got 5 guys that all can play, and all could play for other people. So spreading the ball around, keeping those guys fresh, and then receivers, we have a little more depth than we've had. Since I've been here, so hopefully that'll keep carrying over.
Coach, you talked about Boise State's impressive home record the past 2 decades. They've obviously had some great teams, and when it comes to the blue turf, is that a psychological edge? Is there a psychological advantage to that at all?
I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that you listen to other people, we got a couple guys on our team that played there, a couple coaches and all that, and the fact that we're considering going on a blue turf here before we leave. I mean, it's a new deal. You're not used to it. So, but at the end of the day, you got to play football.
Against Washington, Boise State gave up a lot of explosive plays in the pass games. Do you use this as a chance to evaluate the progress of your own passing game to try to hit some of those?
Yeah, I mean, for us to be successful, we're going to need to be balanced. I mean, Washington, you look at them, I mean, they're impressive. They may be the best offense in college football. I mean, they spread people out. Their quarterback's phenomenal. They got those receivers. They really stretch the field vertically, do a lot of empty. So we're a little bit different than that. But, I mean, for us to be successful against anyone, we're going to have to be balanced. And so that'll be a big key. And that's kind of why I went back to the execution piece. We're going to have to really raise our level from week 1 to week 2, execute.
Obviously, you guys are known for your offense, but the defense really showed up on Thursday. Going back through the tape, what did you see from the defense on Thursday that can carry over and build on for this week?
I mean, we were very simple in defense. Last game, that was by design. And we talked about execution, too. There's still a few things on defense. We held them at 200-some yards, but there was a couple of things on defense that we got to correct. And so I know Addison really worked on that. Each game will unfold differently, but we do have some talent, on the defensive side of the football.
Some new starters on the offensive line. How did you evaluate? How do you think those guys did for a first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all played hard. I think that was the number one thing. But anytime you got 3 new starters, there's going to be growing pains, communication pains, and everything that goes with that. And that's the group that really, from week 1 to week 2, I really feel like we'll need to raise our level. But I'm confident they will. They're hard-nosed guys. They're smart guys. And their defense last week. I mean, we didn't know exactly what we were going to get. Okay, so we have a better idea, I think, this week.
Gus, going back to defense, the secondary used a lot of different rotations and brought in a lot of different guys. What have you seen from that group, and how do you expect them to be maybe challenged this weekend?
We have some depth there. I think that was by design, too. I mean, we have depth, and we have a bunch of young guys, and we need to get them out there and play and get that experience. And so you saw that. That'll help us, especially once we get into our conference season and create that depth. That way, if you have an injury or two, you won't miss a lick. So that's really by design, and that was the plan.
Coach, you had mentioned places where execution needed to improve, but mentioning the defensive line specifically, felt like they had a pretty solid game. What do you do to evaluate trying to get that big leap from them from week 1 to week 2? And as a side note, are you an honorary defensive lineman for talking about tackling John Rice if he didn't slide?
Say it again?
Did the defensive line make you an honorary lineman for offering to tackle John Rice if he didn't slide?
Oh, okay. No, I did. I was serious about John Rice. I mean, we're gonna do a better job of that. Our defensive line, they did about what I thought they would do. We had an outmatched team we played. I think everybody knows that, but we did what we had to do. And we were very, very simple up front and very simple on defense. That was by design. We'll be more game plan oriented because you got to keep in mind, too, we didn't have a clue what they were going to do offensively. Y'all probably knew as much as we did. We had to adapt as we went. So that was the plan by design. Boise creates a lot of different things, too. They do a lot of shifting, a lot of moving. They do a lot of different schemes up front. Their quarterback is a really solid guy. I think, 8-3 as a starter or something. He can really throw it, and he can create things with his feet when he wants to, too. So they present a lot of different kind of challenges than what we saw last week.
Back on the O-line, you debuted a new center. How would you evaluate what you saw from Drake?
Yeah, the center's the leader up front, and he's not a real experienced guy, and so it was good for him to have that experience. And he's a real smart guy. He's a very competitive guy too, and so you'll see him grow. I really believe each week.
What did you think about the Boise State offense after looking at them against Washington? What kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, the running backs. First of all, they hit a couple big screens. I mean, that was real impressive. They were able to run the football up the middle. And like I said, their quarterback. We watched them all last year too. We're very impressed with him.
Coach, last week you admitted to outmatching your opposition. How difficult would you say it is to evaluate an opponent when they themselves were outmatched last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think this week will give us a lot better idea of where we're truly at. I was proud of our team from the standpoint, anytime you play a lesser opponent and you put them away and not play down to their level, I think that's, first of all, a sign of a good team. So that's the positive. Now we'll really figure out exactly, where we're at. I mean, we're playing a very formidable opponent. So it'll be a good test for us, and playing on the road. And I'm telling you, in college football, it's hard to play on the road. And you look at their record. I mean, like I said in the opening statement, I think they either have the best record, the second best record, being by college football since 2000. So they're used to winning. It's a hard place to play. We're going to play good football.
Just kind of, what are your impressions overall about Boise as a program over these last 20, 25 years? Is that, obviously everyone remembers, Fiesta Bowl and some of those plays, and as a coach, and you were coming up at the same time. What did you kind of think about Chris Peterson and those teams?
Yeah, I got a chance to meet Chris Peterson when I was back at Tulsa, and he came to visit us. We talked football, so I always had respect, and you're exactly right. Everybody remembers that Fiesta Bowl play and how creative they were. When I went to Arkansas State, my goal for our program was to be the Boise State of the South. I mean, that they're Boise State. They're a national brand. They're a winning program, one of the winningest programs since 2000, the second winningest program. So they're used to winning, and they've had a lot of great coaches come through there, a lot of great players. They got the culture of winning, and so anytime you schedule a road game, with those guys, I mean, you got to buckle up and you got to play good football to have a chance to win. So that's just the facts of the matter.
On Saturday, there were 4 former UCF quarterbacks that threw a touchdown for other programs. So I was curious to see if you saw any of those games and what you thought about some of the other guys succeeding elsewhere.
No, but that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, that's 4 talented young men. They're all a little bit different, but they're all really fine young men, and they're talented in their own right. I didn't get a chance to watch any of them play, but I did see a couple highlights on Twitter, and it doesn't surprise me at all. And we're rooting for those guys. I mean, obviously we're going to play one, all right, besides that, but we'll cross that bridge when it gets here. All right, thank you guys.